you think men need to man up, but to man up, you have to be getting something out of that relationship. What you're saying is that men are getting something just by having a woman. They're just so lucky. But what's happening is they don't need men anymore. You see, they've let state have become their husband. The state is now the husband.
That's a great way to put it.
That's exactly what it is. Husbands are now expendable. The men on my blog and the readers from all over the country just prompting me and helping me to understand what men are going through in this country. And the last thing I want to say is men are not allowed to speak up. So I'm here as their sort of advocate, because if men speak up, they're called whiners, they're called, wimps, man up, and they're not allowed to talk. Men are on strike in terms of like marriage, fatherhood, and even the American dream, in the sense that they're not even going to college as often, because there are so many reasons. It's just become a very bad deal for men today, and people don't realize it.
Have you ever heard of the book called Men on Strike? Men on Strike by Dr. Helen Smith is a book that explores the reasons why men are opting out of traditional societal roles and responsibilities such as marriage, fatherhood, and the workforce. The book argues that many men feel unfairly treated and discriminated against in areas such as family courts, education, and the workplace, and that this is leading them to withdraw from these areas altogether. The book offers a critique of modern feminist and gender policies and offers suggestions for how society can address the issues facing men in the 21st century. The book was published in 2013, and over the last decade, we have seen incredible transformations in the way we access and use the internet, and the impact that social media has had on our daily lives. From the rise of mobile-first design to the explosion of influencer marketing. The last 10 years have seen a wide range of improvements, changes, and events that have transformed the landscape. In this video, we're going to use the first chapter of Men on Strike, The Marriage Strike, Why Men Don't Marry, as the foundation of this video to compare some of the data and statistics from the past to the current information we have today. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into why more men than ever are on strike in 2023. Now it's time for us to get into this and do what we gotta do, because we men, ain't we? We men, ain't we?
The problem today is that society is not listening to what men have to say if they do open up, and, at the same time, the risks for men in talking about these politically charged issues keep them silent, making it hard to glean the truth. Even those experts or authors who write books on the topic of male reluctance to marry and who profess to be somewhat pro-male seem to get it wrong. What they don't realize is that the incentives to marry have changed for men, and they are no longer willing to risk so much more than in previous years to gain potentially so much less.
What I like about Dr. Helen Smith's book is that it's well researched. A lot of the manosphere talking points we highlight on a daily basis are mentioned in this book. What she says about these experts or authors is still true 10 years later.
See, these dudes kill me. That's what's wrong with this generation today. These young boys today, what do she bring to the table? The hell you mean, man? What do your ass bring to the table? You got a woman that can come to the table that can make another you. What else she need to slide up to the table with?
Certainly the young generation today, they're dating later in life. They're getting married less than previous generations. Why do you think that's true?
Well, I think we have this sort of idea out there today that marriage is about basically, a capstone, and you've got to get all your ducks in a row in terms of, your career, your relationship, and everything else. And so folks are kind of postponing marriage in many cases, postponing kind of the pursuit of marriage in many cases. I think also it's the case too that a lot of folks have very high expectations for, a spouse, and so it makes it harder to find someone who would kind of meet the bar for them. In this cultural context. And the final thing that I would say is we're seeing more challenges with men. A lot of young men today are not working full time. They're not really kind of fully engaged in their relationships. They're spending too much time on the Xbox. And so there's a kind of a malaise among some young men that also I think is part and parcel of why we're seeing this dramatic retreat from marriage unfolding in American life today.
So why aren't they working?
Well, one reason that doesn't fly is that we can't say they're at home taking care of other people. There's an enormous care chasm between guys who are out of the workforce and women who are out of the workforce. It's like an order of magnitude different. If you ask these guys, and we do in these different labor surveys, why aren't you at work? Only a tiny fraction of them say that it's not because there are any jobs for them. And today that would be kind of implausible if you look at the peacetime, labor shortage that we've got going on. Some of them say that it's because of health problems. Some of them say that it's because of other problems. But it's not because of a lack of work, and it's not because of things that they're doing at home.
Mainstream media won't allow experts to tell the truth. Truth tellers will be labeled as misogynist and will be cancelled quicker than a trending Twitter hashtag. There is no incentive for men to get married. There is no incentive for men to do these nitty-gritty jobs. There is a war on men in Western society, and the focus is not on recognizing men as independent individuals who are entitled to equal treatment as citizens in a democratic society, but rather on ensuring that men are treated well enough to encourage them to marry women, have children, and provide for them, with the aim of improving women's lives.
What about your job? What happened to men who were supposed to be responsible? Do you know that it's our job to take care of a woman and some children, to have a family? That's our damn job.
But what happens to when the woman tell you, I don't need a man, Steve?
That's why none of these mainstream experts are talking about the laws. And that's why Dr. Helen Smith's book is pure gold.
Ultimately, society is asking men to do something that is going against their own interests. Their lives as single men are fulfilling, happy and, if not respected, at least envied by their married brethren. Life as a married man is often difficult with few perks and little in the way of respect or rights. The discrepancy between the life of the freer, single man and the life of the less respected, less free life of the married man is at the heart of why so many men have gone on strike.
Who would have thought that 10 years later, the most Googled man on earth had this to say about marriage?
I think it's a fantastic environment, and I think in an idealistic world, that's the way it would be. I think the reason it's not happening today is that I don't think many men actually benefit from marriages or relationships anymore. And people are always going to have to require some degree of incentive. I think that we've set up the world now in a way where men are seen as worker droids. They're expected to go work all day, come home, clean up as well, share the cleaning with the woman, no meal prepared for them, not have any authority over the household, and just be a worker droid and be a sad. And I don't think that many people understand that men are intrinsically wired to desire respect amongst our peers and in our environments. This is why CEOs work so hard, because they get respect in their company. This is why we all want so much money and fast cars and status and influence, because we're respected. Men desire respect like we desire oxygen. And if a man's coming home to a household where he doesn't feel any respect, he's not going to want to be there for very long.
We all know what's happening to Andrew Tate for speaking the truth. But the support he's receiving from men, especially young men, speaks volumes about the profound influence of social media on our society and its values.
That's quite remarkable. I think there's a whole swath of the population, especially young men, that feel disenfranchised. They feel disenfranchised with the media machine and the things they're supposed to believe. They don't feel an affinity with the educational systems or the culture. And they look at a person like me who stands up and says the things that many young men think. I haven't put a magic spell on the world. The fact that people like what I say means that they agree with me deep inside. They may be afraid to say it themselves, but I am seen as a bastion of free speech and a bastion for masculinity as a whole, because a lot of men are largely forgotten about.
Since I have a men's rights blog, I looked back at some posts on marriage where I had asked men if they wanted to marry and, if not, why. I initially made the mistake of suggesting that men who didn't marry were missing out. My readers set me straight about the ramifications of being married in a society that puts women's legal and psychological needs first and men's needs last or not at all. I followed up the marriage blog post with an article for PG Media that asked men if they should marry, and hundreds of readers contributed their experiences, many did so anonymously. There was a lot of anger and sadness in the responses, and typically, you know what that means to the politically correct or even the white knight crowd. Men who complain are either wimps or misogynists or both. In reality, they are usually neither.
Back in 2013, Dr. Helen Smith was able to extract valuable information from the internet using her blog. 10 years later, there have been improvements and changes that have had a profound impact on the online landscape.
So explain that, if you would.
Sure. Google Webmaster Trends Analyst John Mueller told us that to Google, mobile-friendly means not only can users see the same content from your site on a mobile device, but they can have as good an experience with your site as they would on the desktop version.
So in other words, they shouldn't feel like they have to switch over to a desktop version of your site to do whatever it is they want to do on your site.
Right. That might be navigating to other content or pages on your site, the ability to buy something, easily finding related items, filling out a form, or any of the kinds of things people normally do on a desktop website.
The shift towards mobile-first design has made it easier for people to access the internet and social media on the go, and has opened up new opportunities for businesses to connect with customers. Live video has enabled people to share their experiences in real time, creating a more immersive and engaging social media experience. Influencer marketing has transformed the advertising industry, allowing brands to reach new audiences through trusted voices. Ephemeral content has changed the way we share and consume content, with short-lived stories and posts becoming a popular way to share in-the-moment experiences. Finally, personalization and privacy concerns have changed the way we interact with social media platforms and websites, with users expecting more personalized experiences while also demanding greater control over their data and privacy. Overall, these changes have transformed the online landscape and continue to shape the way we interact with each other and the world around us. What men are saying on the internet can no longer be overlooked. The latest viral event around marriage has not only taught men a hard lesson about divorce court, but has also given men around the world a heavy dose of truth about female nature.
The court has come to a conclusion. Mr. Ashraf Hakimi, the law states that due to the divorce, your lovely wife here is going to walk away with half of all your belongings. So, Mr. Hakimi, how much are you actually worth? I don't get shishi.
What do you mean?
What is the meaning of this? Does he think we're here to joke? This ain't no joke, boy. You can ask my mama right there. Yes, all his money is with me. God damn.
Just take a look at the comments on Twitter, the comments on YouTube. Everywhere you look on the internet, men are singing the same tune. Information, knowledge is spreading faster than ever. Manosphere content creators could only dream of getting 10K subscribers 10 years ago. Dr. Helen Smith uses anecdotes to highlight examples of men who have chosen not to take on traditional roles and responsibilities within marriage or society. Here is one of the examples.
I met a woman that I was sure was my soulmate. I was deeply in love, and so I thought, was she? All this changed when I lost my high-paying job through downsizing. To my credit, I went to work immediately and had 2 jobs, but still only made about 80% of my old income. My wife gave me a year and then began sleeping with a man, who hadn't lost his job, in my bed while I was at work. She left with him, taking almost all of my savings and anything else she could carry. Her explanation was that she was an expensive BCH and she was unhappy because I worked so much. The adultery doesn't seem to matter to the court, and she got essentially everything. Besides the financial losses, I was so devastated by the betrayal that I could barely function for months. She treated me like garbage, and I never worked harder at any endeavor in my life.
10 years later, you can find many YouTube channels telling men's stories about divorce, infidelity, and paternity fraud. Just look at the comments section and see what these men are saying. This space is at an all-time high, and it's growing because the majority of men can relate to these stories.
The strike theory is generally correct, I think. The problem is that games and porn are entertaining, inexpensive, easily accessible, and reliable. Women can be entertaining, but they're expensive, inaccessible for most men, and from the male perspective, shockingly unreliable.
Dr. Helen Smith has conducted research on men's views on marriage by interviewing them in various settings, such as bars, gyms, and among gamers. Through her research, Dr. Helen Smith has also gathered relevant data and statistics to support her findings. She provides a detailed explanation of the 80-20 rule, which is a concept related to the unequal distribution of benefits and costs in relationships. Since a decade has passed, the oldest members of Generation Z are now in their mid-20s, while the oldest millennials are now in their early 40s. The world has also undergone significant changes due to the rise of social media and the pandemic, which has had a profound impact on every aspect of life. This has resulted in a shift in the data and statistics, with the 80-20 rule being replaced by the 90-10 rule, which suggests an even greater disparity in the distribution of benefits and cost within relationships.
I believe after this virus that 90% of women, 90% of women will only settle with the 10% of men simply for the fact that they need more money, they need more resources in times of stress, in times of turmoil and uncertainty times where there's a recession such as now. They're going to even exclude even more men, okay, moving forward. They're always gonna think that the grass is greener on the other side, when in fact right in front of them, they have literally guys, all throughout their 20s, even early 30s, 18, 19, they have the 90% of men that want them. 90%, guys. Can you imagine, just think about this for a moment. Can you imagine, as a man, it's hard to imagine this unless you're a celebrity, 90% of women chasing after you, all right? 90% of women willing to sleep with you. 90% of women willing to be in a long-term committed relationship with you or just hook up with you in general. Can you imagine that as a man? It's pretty astounding, you know? You don't think about this very often, that there's a 10% man that does have this going on in his life, has his life together, and if he ends up sleeping with 90% of the women, what this does, and it creates a huge issue, 90% of women walk around feeling entitled to that 10% man, even though he's not going to settle down. He's alpha, he's going to go his own way. So a lot of men have checked out of this entirely, and I don't blame them. It's just simply ridiculous. And I feel like after the coronavirus, more people are going to lose their jobs. The market's taking a hit, so we're going to see people lose some of their investments. Eventually, obviously, we will get out of these times of trouble and these times of uncertainty. But right now, I'd say that yes, even that extra 10%, it used to be 20% of men, cut that in half, it's going to be only 10% of men that are going to be sleeping with 90% of the women. All right? And what's a 10% man? Looks, money, status, what I said before.
Shout out to Masculine Edge Network for this video. The pandemic accelerated the process of men waking up to the truth about female nature and the war on men in Western society. Look at the headlines. Why have young men falling out of love with romantic relationships? I am Gen Z. Men in my generation are not dating. Why should we? Most young men are single. Most young women are not. 6 out of 10 young men are single. The disturbing reasons why. New Pew Research Center data has found that nowadays 63% of men under 30 are electively single, up from 51% in 2019. And experts blame erotic alone time online as a major culprit. Young men are watching a lot of social media. They are watching a lot of porn, and I think they're getting a lot of their needs met without having to go out. Psychologist Fred Rabinowitz told The Hill. What Dr. Helen Smith said about the strike theory is now on steroids, and experts like Steve Harvey selling this foolishness will only lead to more men opting out.
Try to live your life without women. This ain't about la-da-da, man. This is some bullshit without women. If it wasn't for women, what would you? Aristotle Onassis said it best. He said, if women did not exist, all the money in the world would have no meaning. Dog, women is everything. They the catch me out. They the lick, man. But these young boys done forgot it because these women out here, they trying to be they've had to be independent because they ain't got the right man.
Okay.
But this system of marriage is still good.
Okay.
This system of a man taking care of a woman, that's really how it's supposed to be. All the rest of it's bullshit, man. And y'all need to quit tricking yourself with this new way of thinking. Because there's no way of thinking. This new way of thinking ain't getting y'all no damn where. I'm sorry.
Steve Harvey caters to his female audience and he's keeping them single. Same thing goes for Dr. Ramen Noodles. What are the benefits of dating single mothers? She had to cater not only to her female audience, but also to herself as she let her go with a cat on her lap. We easily cooked her because in her whole response video she said nothing substantial about a single mother's value in a relationship.
Now, the implication of this upset man's video was that dating a single mother was too dramatic, which, by the way, is also a gaslighting tactic that a person that has any kind of emotional reaction or actual stress in their life is somehow drama. That's a way of shutting a person down, shaming them, and invalidating them. Not cool.
Before the Great Wall hit her.
You say dating is probably, as a single mom, probably the most difficult activity in your life.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're balancing the issue of your children. I mean, because now you have it's a whole different game. This isn't just about going out and being carefree. You're not carefree. You've got to balance the issues of your child, of being a mother, of balancing a divorce, and usually the hurts that came after the divorce. So it's a whole different landscape. You're bringing a heck of a lot more luggage into this.
Well, I want to make sure I get this. So you see, you're not just bringing your luggage, you're bringing your kids' luggage with you.
Yeah, and your kids.
Instead of refuting the point she herself made in that video, she earned her nickname Dr. Ramen Noodles by resorting to shaming language, and she immediately pulled the narcissistic card on us.
The fact that he thinks that actually seems to speak to the likelihood that an egocentric man who is dating and upset man seems to be trying to speak to men in his video is not going to want to make allowances for a woman who has any other requirements or demands in her life, such as a job or children, such as the selfishness of narcissism.
Please watch the full video breakdown of how we completely destroy Dr. Ramen Noodle's weak arguments. The point that we want to make is that this is another expert that completely disregards what men have to say just to cater to herself and her female audience, contributing to the disconnect between men and women. Men are not allowed to have preferences. Men are not allowed to have a voice. That's exactly what Dr. Helen Smith mentions in her book.
Our society tells men they are worthless perverts who reek of male privilege while simultaneously castrating them should they act in a manly manner, and now women are upset because men are becoming more feminized? You reap what you sow.
Shout out to Dr. Helen Smith. You can find the link to the book Men on Strike in the description. There is nothing wrong with going your own way, fellas, but it is wrong to waste your life. You can find joy in many things in life, such as exploring new places, learning new skills, or making meaningful connections with others. Embrace the opportunities that come your way and find joy in each experience. Remember, we shit. Management, we working. Protect yourself at all times. This video has officially been highlighted.